Hey, Rick Sayes here. Welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, where I hope to provide entertaining conversations with retailers, brand managers, athletes, executives, and others in the outdoor biz to get their stories, tips, strategies, productivity tricks, and ideas that you can apply and take your career or business to the next level. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. I've used Audible for many years now. I'm on the road a lot, and Audible allows me to enjoy the great books I discover or are recommended by friends. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/theoutdoorbizpodcast. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Start your 30-day free trial with Audible today. Hey guys, this episode is with Forsake founder Jake Anderson. Forsake is one of the newer footwear brands in the outdoor world. Launching in 2013, Jake and his team have put together a great collection of men's and women's active footwear. Jake tells us how two guys with zero footwear experience saw a market opportunity, wrote a business plan, and turned it into a growing brand. His story about their first sales presentation is pretty funny, and many of us have been there. Enjoy. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good to chat with you. So tell us a little bit about, I guess we'll get to Forsake in a minute. What was your first exposure to the outdoors? Did you grow up as a kid hiking and skiing?
Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York, not too far from the Adirondacks. And I think my first exposure to the outdoors wasn't a particularly positive one. I think it was one of those like drag your, the family's going camping for a weekend and it rains the whole time and the kids complain. And so that was when I was pretty young.
Yeah.
But when I was probably in like 7th or 8th grade, I got really hooked on skiing.
Nice.
And that sort of continued ever since. So that was sort of the first really inspiring part of the outdoors for me.
So the rain trip didn't turn you off on it. That's cool.
No, not completely. I think there was probably a 5-year period where I was like, all right, I'm done with this. But skiing got me back into it. And then we started a tradition among some high school buddies in high school that we would do a backpacking trip in the Adirondacks just about every summer.
Oh, nice.
And that I think was more up my alley because the trips always revolved around sort of a certain goal, whether it was climbing a mountain or doing a certain route. And I think that type of goal-oriented activity in the outdoors was always more appealing to me than just more general sort of let's go camping for the weekend.
Right. I had the same thing. I had some high school buddies that they all loved to go camping, so they'd go to Yosemite and camp for the week, and a couple of others of us would would spend a week hiking and meet those guys because we couldn't just hang out and camp, So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like you need that sort of activity to sort of channel that energy. So
right.
That was probably what sort of got me hooked.
So you've done a lot of backpacking. That's great in the Adirondacks. I've never been there.
It's wonderful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's really gorgeous in the summer. It's great. There's a lot of really cool towns sort of on the outskirts of the high peaks there, like Saranac Lake and Lake Placid. So it's a really cool area to explore. And being in upstate New York, where it's pretty flat, having an outlet just a few hours away was really nice.
That's nice. Yeah, awesome. And what was the inspiration behind Forsake? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I went to college.
Let me back up.
Oh, yeah, did we skip one?
Yeah, what was your first outdoor job? It wasn't obviously Forsake. Did you work retail?
Yeah, it was working retail.
I
got a job at a local ski shop in Rochester.
Okay.
Just doing boot fittings, ski tuning, all that stuff. So that was the first exposure to the industry.
Nice, awesome. And how long did you do that?
I did that for a couple years. I went to college at a school called Union College, which was on a trimester system. And the trimesters allowed you to, there was a big gap between the Thanksgiving and New Year's period where the first trimester would end before Thanksgiving. The next one wouldn't start up until the after New Year's. And
nice.
As you can imagine, it's like prime time for retail and the outdoor industry in that period, particularly in the ski side. So I'd go home to Rochester and move back home. And then for those 7 or 8 weeks, I would just work, 50, 60 hours a week at the ski shop, just selling skis and doing tunes and getting everybody prepped for the season. So that was sort of my first exposure.
Right on. And then what was the inspiration for Forsake? How'd that come about?
So because of that trimester system at school, the winter trimester lined up almost perfectly with the ski season, because it would start in January and it would go through the end of March or very early April. And if you combine that with that November to holiday break that I was just telling you about, you pretty much had the whole ski season right there.
Right.
So I discovered that I was ahead on school credits, and got a job basically doing the exact same thing I was doing at the ski shop in Rochester, but in Big Sky, Montana.
Okay.
And so I moved out to Big Sky. I worked at the demo shop there for a season, and then went back to school afterwards. But when I was out there, what you notice is these teenagers, 20 somethings, my contemporaries at the time, who were walking around the mountains and the ski resort in their favorite pair of sneakers, like their Nikes, shoes, right? Yeah, their Vans, their Nikes. Right. They weren't really wearing what was on the wall at your local outdoor shop. The Merrells, the Columbias, the hiking boots.
Yeah, right.
So we sort of saw this gap, or at least this disconnect, between what this young, active, outdoorsy customer that I really felt a part of wanted to wear on their feet, and what the outdoor industry was offering at that particular time.
Perfect. In
terms of footwear options. So we felt like there was that opportunity to target that customer with a product that was kind of more casual, a little bit of lifestyle, but really took the best parts about those hiking boots and those winter boots and put them into this sort of everyday beefed up sneaker package. And that's sort of that's what got us started.
And did you guys have any experience making footwear, or you just saw the opportunity and figure it out later?
Not a bit.
Nice.
So when I was in Big Sky, my friend Sam was in Alta, Utah, doing pretty much the same thing. And when we got back to campus, we saw this poster for a business plan competition on campus. We sort of shared this experience of seeing this customer and wanting this pair of shoes that didn't really exist, and decided to write a business plan for it. And at the time, we had no idea what we were doing.
That's perfect, though.
Exactly. Yeah. You really, sometimes you just had to put your head down and run.
Yeah.
But we ended up being the only ones in the entire school to submit a business plan to this competition. Wow. So rather than giving us first place, they just canceled it for lack of participation. And we were sort of left with this 20-page business plan that we'd spent all semester
What was the first place prize? You didn't get anything?
It was like a few $1,000s.
Oh,
it was
my
meaningful
God.
money when you're 20 years old.
Right. Wow.
So they donated it to a local nonprofit, which is fine,
wow.
but we didn't have anything to show for it. So I sort of sent this, I think, sort of frustrated email to the entrepreneurship professor who was running the thing, being like, what's going on? Spent so much time on this.
Yeah.
And he ended up forwarding the business plan on, I think probably out of sympathy, to an alum of the school who used to work for Nike. And this guy, he wasn't working for Nike at the time. He had moved on to another footwear brand, but he was living in China. And he was sort of one of those back end production guys,
operations guys.
Exactly. And he got the business plan. Clearly within the first few paragraphs could tell that we just had no idea what we were talking about. but he sort of I don't know, he liked the idea, so he called us up.
Yeah.
It was probably a Friday night, midnight Eastern time, like morning his time. We're getting ready to go out, do the college thing.
Right, a couple beers in already.
Exactly, and he just started chatting to us about footwear.
Huh.
So Sam and I sort of buckled down and didn't go out that night, and just chatted with him for maybe 2 hours.
Wow.
About the industry. And he was going to be in the States, not a few weeks later. So we met up with him in the States, and he was sort of our entryway.
Wow. Excellent.
His name was Jim Mann. I don't know what he's doing now, but I do believe he's living in China still. So Jim, if you hear this, I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He was sort of our entryway. He gave us that hope or that ability to say, this is doable. This is something that you can accomplish with the knowledge, with the right connections. And he sort of paved that way forward.
That's excellent. Well, you had the hardest part figured out, right? You saw the market opportunity. So oftentimes that's where the disconnect is. Someone has a great idea to make something, but somebody's already doing it. You found that, so that's perfect.
Yeah, I do. I do think that from what we've learned since, I think oftentimes that first idea is, it's all about execution, right? That first idea is simply an idea. And if you can't put that into practice, it's sort of meaningless. So
Right.
having the ability and somebody to have the resources to share with you to sort of help you take it to that next level was exactly what we needed at the time. And
Yeah.
and sort of is critical to moving forward.
That's awesome. So what were some of the challenges getting that started? I'm sure, not knowing how to make footwear is a huge challenge, but on the flip side is, at these days you can get anything made. So you had the idea. Did you have to, what were your marketing strategies? And I'm sure production was
Yeah.
challenging, but at the same time, maybe
Well,
not.
I think between the two of us at the time, we might have had like $800. So that was
Starving
a bit
college
of a
students.
challenge.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Exactly. So that was the first challenge. I think with footwear, um, it's a very capital intensive business.
Hmm.
The combination, what I love about it also makes it so complicated, and that's like it's this unique combination of engineering, design, fashion, technology that sort of all intersects to create this thing that protects you in so many different ways.
Right.
And because of that, you need molds, you need leather hides, you need
Right.
both stitching and the right rubber, and
Right.
there's a lot of these component pieces. So
And it's a pretty
I
ugly
think
process. I mean, it's a pretty dirty process,
it
footwear.
is.
Yeah.
It very much is.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest challenge for us getting going was figuring out how to finance this and
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
to, with a factory who's expecting,
Yeah.
a
Thousands of
minimum
pairs.
order of thousands of pairs.
Right.
That's a pretty big hurdle to get off
Right.
right from the get-go. Not to mention, injection molds for every single size you're making. So
Right.
it's almost an insurmountable hurdle. The way that we got around it was through Kickstarter and figuring out that
Excellent.
if we pre-sold shoes
Hmm.
and got that money up front, that can kind of blaze our trail.
Right. Right. So you launched it on Kickstarter. So how successful was that? It must have obviously got you going.
Yeah, we actually ended up having to do a Kickstarter twice.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
the first time we did a Kickstarter was, I think, the very beginning of 2012. We were we were working with a factory who had really high expectations for a minimum order.
Hmm.
And because of that, we had to set our Kickstarter goal at some sort of
Wow.
outrageous number, like 250,000 or something.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And we didn't really come close. We probably raised like 50 or 60 grand.
Hmm.
But we realized that part of, when you look at the dynamics of Kickstarter, oftentimes success breeds success, and people want to know that you're going to, be within reaching. If they're going to pledge
Yeah.
your project, they want
Yeah.
to know that you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
And so we realized that if we were able to lower that goal, we might be able to get, that number up and be able to reach it. So
Hmm.
we switched factories. We moved to a smaller facility. We sort of whittled down the product line to a more narrow selection, and then we relaunched at the very end of 2012 with
Cool.
a $100,000 goal.
And how many
which
styles did you have?
hit. Just 3. We did
Nice, yeah.
a pretty narrow product line,
Tight. Yeah.
all very similar, waterproof, high tops, and that was, I think, narrowing the product line, getting the minimum order down. And then relaunching and using that sort of the people that did pledge the first time,
Right.
getting them, back in the door the second time was huge. So
Right.
we were successful in that second try.
And are any of those styles still in the line?
One is
Cool.
The hiker boot
Oh, nice.
in that brown and green colorway has
Uh-huh.
been in the line since the original. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's great.
it's been a
Yeah.
mainstay.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So, what are you most proud of that you guys have accomplished with Forsake? And before you get to that, sorry, I keep bouncing around today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Were you were just consumer direct since the get go, correct?
No, we had always had our hope of being sort of multi-channel.
Uh-huh.
We were fortunate that from the get-go we had we got a purchase order shortly after that successful Kickstarter campaign from Eastern Mountain Sports to give us a test in a handful of doors, and so that sort of lit a fire under us.
Did you have a connection there, or how'd you get that?
We did. We had a family friend. It was actually my co-founder Sam's friend from growing up. His dad
cool.
it was pretty high up there, so he got us a meeting with the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time we went and met, we'd never done a sales meeting before, and we show up to Eastern Mountain Sports in just full suits. Like we are buttoned up, we are tied, we are briefcases, and these guys walk down to the lobby to greet us in like flip flops and chacos and like a short sleeve button down, and they just start laughing. And it's
great.
At that point, we were like, okay, like we can relax a little bit. So the next time we went in, we were more appropriately dressed, and had kept them up to date on the evolution of the product line, and they eventually wrote us a purchase order. But
Very
that
cool.
sort of, lit a fire under us to be like, there's an opportunity here, both in the wholesale and the direct side.
Right.
And a balancing act is what we'd like to do, and that's been our strategy ever since.
That's great. So what are you most proud of that you guys have accomplished?
Other
than just getting it off the ground. I mean, that's great. That's huge.
Yeah, I think what I continue to really value and am happy with is that your product's never going to be perfect from the start. You have to be open to criticism. You have to be willing to iterate. And I think we've been really successful by sort of accepting that and embracing that. We always and are constantly making changes, and the ability to react to a customer's feedback, the ability to consistently approve and to question yourself. That's something that we never want to lose, and has, I think, made the product better and better over the last 4 years. That's
great. That's pretty significant. Yeah, that's awesome.
Indeed.
And do you guys have some big plans moving forward?
We do. So last fall was our women's launch, which we previously only been a men's brand. And that's been going really, really well. And the big plans going forward, we're doing a pretty significant product introduction in spring 2018.
Cool.
One of our big initiatives for the upcoming seasons is to sort of figure out how to crack the spring summer seasons. We've always been more of a fall winter brand, and we do feel like there's a huge opportunity there. So the big news for us is this kind of big product launch that we have planned for February, March of 2018.
Great.
Which is our first collaboration with Vibram.
Oh, cool.
On a product that's sort of on the more technical, more trail ready side, as opposed to something that's just casual and waterproof.
Exciting. Will we see that at Outdoor Retailer?
You will indeed. Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome.
We will have that available. Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure and stop by the booth. Maybe we'll do a quick.
Please do. Yeah.
We'll do a quick intro with you guys there or something.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So tell us about any nonprofit work you guys do. Do you support any nonprofits?
We do. The main one we work with is Carbon Fund. As you pointed out, making shoes is a pretty messy process. And it's hard to figure. We haven't quite figured out a way around that yet. And I think the whole industry is trying to figure out a way around it.
Yeah.
But we make shoes that are meant to be sort of uniquely versatile, that can help you sort of experience the world, that aren't going to inhibit you in whatever sort of adventure you find yourself in. And because of that, there's this recognition that, well, we want you to explore, we want you to go on these adventures, and yet we're shipping product all over the world. We're using all these chemicals to make it. It's sort of this. There's a little bit of hypocrisy there, and one of the things that's always been important to us is to figure out a way. If we can't change the manufacturing technique, let's at least figure out a way to compensate for it. So we offset all of our carbon emissions, whether that's work travel on airplanes, whether that's manufacturing footwear, getting those shoes from a warehouse to your doorstep. All of that's offset through Carbon Fund. So
awesome.
we're big supporters of them, and been working with them. We started at the beginning of this calendar year, so we're just about a year in.
Oh, great.
But yeah, that's something we're absolutely continuing with and feel passionately about.
Perfect. Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes so everybody can see.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Awesome. And what outdoor activities do you participate in? Obviously, you still ski, I'm sure.
I do. I ski quite a bit, not as much as I would hope, but
none of us do.
None of us do, indeed. I do. I do the casual day hikes. I haven't done a big backpacking trip in a while. It's been probably about 2 years since I did go to New Zealand with a buddy and do like a 2-week backpacking trip about 2 years ago. But since then, it's just been sort of day hikes.
Do you get out on weekends?
And
you go weekend thing?
Yeah, I try to do some weekends. Most of it comes from like tacking a day on to work travel.
Uh-huh,
One of the great things about the outdoor industry is that the places that it
yeah,
brings you are usually pretty sweet.
yeah. And the
So
people you
we're
interact with are you usually always have a hiking buddy.
very like-minded.
Yeah.
Everyone's got gear to share with you.
Right. Right.
It's really fantastic. So we end up going to Seattle 4 times a year, Denver
Yeah.
twice a year, Salt Lake. So
Perfect.
we always tack on 2-3 days either at the beginning or at the end to sort of experience the area, get outside, um, connect with some work people in
Yep.
the outdoors.
That's great.
So it's usually biking, hiking, or skiing around those trips.
Awesome. And do you have any advice or suggestions for someone wanting to get into the outdoor biz or maybe grow their career or even start a company?
Yeah. So the outdoor industry is there's no really clear path.
Yeah.
And
you got to hack your way in. Yeah.
you really got to hack your way in. And I think, if you're willing, the easiest way is to just start with customer service. Start at the bottom, learn the customer, learn the operations, figure out how these organizations work, and sort of from there chart your path. If that's not appealing or it's not a place you want to start, there are some. One of the things about the outdoor industry that I think is really interesting is just how focused it is on product design, product engineering.
Yeah.
And there are a number of programs around the country at schools that offer 1-year masters in product development.
Yeah, that's a new thing. Yeah, there's starting to be more and more of those, which is exciting to see. Yeah,
absolutely. There's some out of like University of Utah. There's one out of University of Oregon, and those I think are the closest you'll find to a more formal path to the industry,
right.
Especially if product is the way you want to go. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. There's a lot of the other thing people don't realize is there's a lot of places that you could start at the bottom, right? You can go to a manufacturer, you can go to a brand,
Totally.
You can go to a retailer. I mean, there's a million places. So don't let the bottom scare you. There's a lot of bottoms, and there's a lot of variety in each of them.
And a lot of those companies, I think REI is a great example. They hire internally more than anything.
Yeah.
And if you start at the retail level at a specific store, and work your way up, there's going to be opportunities that open up at corporate headquarters.
Yeah.
And those, they always look to fill internally before anywhere else. So that's also a good path.
That's great advice. Yeah. And do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity or health, like meditate, walk the dog?
My meditation is probably my morning French press of coffee.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, that's about as much meditation as I need. And then other than that, I do try to, this time of year isn't great, but when the weather's nice, I do try to get out and run at least
cool.
2 to 4 times a week or so. So, try to work up a sweat and yeah, I think I travel so much that it's little things like during a 2-hour layover, just walk in the airport or, trying to get out and, get the steps in or eat healthy, it's those kind of things that I think ultimately add up.
They do.
Particularly for a lifestyle where you're on the road so much.
Yeah, that's right. And are you a big reader? Do you have any favorite books or do you give books as gifts?
I do. Yeah. I think the last one that I read, that I also gave as a gift was Phil Knight's memoir that he came out with pretty recently called Shoe Dog.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about that. I got to get that.
It's fantastic.
Is it? Okay,
it's really,
awesome.
really good. Because it covers the period of Nike that really no one has heard about, at least from my generation, where you grew up in like the 90s. He covers basically the 60s and the 70s, like the pre-Michael Jordan time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The Steve Prefontaine time. And that's it's a fascinating journey because it's, when I see Nike right now, you just think of this behemoth that's so successful and just everything they do is just, it's so visible. And
they're everywhere.
You kind of forget that there was 2 decades of just grinding, of being perpetually broke, of being on the verge of bankruptcy almost like on a weekly basis. And that's, to know that a company like that had such humble beginnings is I think, for anybody starting a business can be really reassuring and
that's
give you some
good.
comfort.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. I'll have to pick that up. And how about your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Oh man, that's tough. That's really tough.
And we're not talking pro deals here either. I have to clarify
I was gonna say, it's been a while since I paid full price.
A lot of industry insiders get those deals.
Yeah. Under $100. I think there's some really good multi-tools out there that I rely on pretty heavily.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Those are, come in handy, even if, for somebody who's not really into camping or, only gets out hiking maybe once a month. It's even to have around the house. It's really fantastic.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite one?
I don't know what it's called. It's a Leatherman.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head what it's called, but I think, they have a whole selection that have various tools.
Yeah.
Yeah. For whatever you're using it for. And I find that those come in handy and they last forever.
Yeah. Cool.
So
we'll link to that in the show notes too. Yeah. Awesome. As we go to wrap here, is there anything else you want to say to the audience or ask of our audience?
No, that I think covers it.
Okay, cool.
That's about the story. That's all I got.
That's good. No, that's great. And how can people find you if they want to get a hold of you and ask a couple of questions? Email or?
Yeah, you can, feel free to shoot me an email. It's just jake@forsake.com.
Okay.
You can find us online at forsake.com, Instagram at forsakeco. And then, we have a store locator on our website if you ever want to check out the products.
Cool. Yeah, we'll link to all that stuff. That's awesome. Well, thanks for the time, Jake. It's been great.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jake Anderson. You can catch up with Jake by email at jake@forsake.com. That's JAKE@FORSAKE.com. Be sure to check them out on Instagram at ForsakeCo and their website, forsake.com. You'll find links to everything we discussed in the show notes at theoutdoorbizpodcast.com/episode/060. And I'd love it if you drop me a note at rick@theoutdoorbizpodcast.com to tell me what you love and don't love about the podcast. Thanks for listening. This episode is brought to you by Rumpel. I use my Rumpel blanket on chilly photo shoot mornings making coffee. I love it. My Rumpel blanket takes the chill off while I'm waiting for the water to boil. It also keeps me toasty stargazing at night. Get 15% off your Rumpel blanket with code OutdoorBizPod at rumpel.com. That's OUTDOORBIZPOD for 15% off your next Rumpel blanket at RUMPL.com. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher or go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Outdoor Biz Podcast, Twitter at Rick_Saez, that's SAEZ, and my email is rick@theoutdoorbizpodcast.com. Thanks for listening and all the support, and a huge shout out to all my guests, and until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.